What's going on, everyone? This is Syrian, and today I'm bringing you some pretty exciting Titanfall 2 action. The first clip in this video is a nice little 32 pilot kill rampage that I went on, and the second is actually the highest score I've had so far in the game. I think I ended up with 260 points in that one, so sit back and enjoy. I'm actually here today to give you guys my thoughts on Titanfall 2 as a whole. This was initially going to be a first impressions video, but getting around to making it took a bit longer than expected, so now I've played a decent bit. I feel I can give a proper review rather than just a first impressions. So let's get down to it. First things first, I am going to be talking about both the single player and the multiplayer for Titanfall 2. Some of you might be surprised by that, but believe me when I say that comes as a surprise to me as well. I never thought I would find myself talking about the single player in one of these multiplayer-centric arcade shooter type games, but here we are. More of that to come later. To start off with, I'd like to talk about the technical aspects of the game. First of all, I'd like to make it perfectly clear that I am playing on PC, so keep that in mind that if you're on console, then your experience may differ. Those of you who were paying attention prior to the release of Titanfall 2 may remember a big fuss being made about the fact that there was no PC beta for the game. I myself remember quite a few people declaring the game to be ruined before it even came out because of the lack of a beta. A lot of people seem to assume that no PC beta meant Respawn was afraid that people would see an unpolished, poorly made PC port akin to, say, COD Ghosts or something. Fortunately, and I'm very happy to be able to say this, those people's assumptions were completely incorrect. For me, the game has run pretty much flawlessly from day one. Now I understand I do have a better system than the average player, but I also require a much higher performance standard than the average player as well. After tweaking a few graphics settings, I've been able to get my game to run steady at over 120 FPS. I believe the game is actually capped at 144 FPS, and I don't know whether it's been absolutely rock solid at 144, but the game really does run very well and it feels incredibly smooth. I've had zero issues with mouse input, no mouse lag or acceleration, none of the crap that often plagues FPS games on PC, especially ones that are simultaneously developed for console. As for the other technical aspects, the graphics options are fairly extensive and allow for more than enough customization. Unless you're trying to run this game on a potato, you really shouldn't have any issues achieving a solid 60 FPS, which is enough for the vast majority of players. For me personally, especially with shooters, I definitely prefer a higher frame rate as possible, with 120 FPS being what I would want as my absolute minimum in a PvP FPS. As I said, I've been able to well and truly achieve that with my setup, even when playing while streaming. This goes for both single player and multiplayer, so whoever was in charge of optimizing the PC version over at Respawn really deserves to be commended for a job well done. Making a game that looks this good and runs this well is no easy task. And that brings me neatly to the next thing I want to talk about, the graphics. This video probably doesn't do it justice because it's only in 720p and it's at a relatively low bitrate, but the game really does look and sound fantastic. The graphics are superb, the audio design is even better, gun sounds are weighty and bassy and satisfying, weapons look and feel and sound as if they're really impactful, and I find the aesthetics to be very appealing. The game is nice and vibrant without being garish or overly cartoony, and the overall visual design just does a wonderful job of immersing you in the world. Let's move on to gameplay and stuff. I'm going to talk about the single player first, and on that note, I'd like to start by saying that I have only one single solitary complaint about it. It's too short. I'd say the campaign is only an average of about 5 to 6 hours long. That may vary a bit depending on the difficulty setting and the skill of the player involved, but for most players, that's about how long one playthrough of the game will take. While this might seem either absurdly short or not that bad, depending on what sort of hours you personally are used to sinking into a game, I find it to be disappointingly short, mainly because the 5 to 6 hours that I played were some of the most fun I've ever had in a single player FPS. It might be a bit of a strange comparison to make, but the closest thing I can compare it to is Valve's Half-Life series. During the campaign, you move organically from linear set piece to linear set piece in much the same manner as Half-Life 2. Things start off simple, and slowly the designers introduce new game mechanics to liven up the journey and throw new challenges in your direction. Respawn did an excellent job at making these new mechanics seem cool and useful rather than gimmicky, and the design is good enough to make changes in gameplay easy to learn and easy to take advantage of while still providing new challenge. This actually really surprised me because going into the campaign, I really didn't know much about it. Titanfall 1 didn't have a campaign at all. I believe that's a courtesy of EA forcing Respawn to publish it before they were finished. I'd had a few people tell me that Titanfall 2's campaign was really good, so I went in expecting it to be decent, at least, in the same way that I had found, say, Black Ops 2's campaign to be decent. Perfectly enjoyable, but hardly memorable. Instead, I was pleasantly surprised to see pretty much nothing but excellent game design the whole way through. As I said, my only complaint is that it's simply too short. 5 to 6 hours, maybe double that for a second playthrough. 10 years ago, that would have been more than enough for a AAA title. Today, most games tend to aim for far more replay value and far more time investment than that. Whether that's enough for you or not, I personally would like at least 10 hours of single player content for a single playthrough. I think Doom 2016 campaign is about 10 hours long for a first playthrough, if you're not a completionist about it. All that being said, Titanfall 2 is one of the only multiplayer-centric FPS games I've played that I would say could warrant a purchase for its single player alone. But for those of you who aren't interested in single player, the multiplayer is just as excellent. Basically, the multiplayer is everything that I and other Titanfall fans wanted from the sequel. Before release, I'd talked a fair bit to some of my friends about what they wanted. All of us basically said the same thing, just make the same game with more content, and that's exactly what we've been given. First, let me say that basically all the things that PC players look for in an online shooter are present here. The game has 100% dedicated servers for all games, you're able to see your ping at the push of a button, you're able to choose what region you'd like to play in, and I haven't seen a single cheater in my 50 plus hours on the game so far. The only thing that some people might say is missing is a server browser and maybe an unlocked frame rate. Personally, I've never really cared about having a server browser so long as the online matchmaking actually does its job, and it does in this game, so that's not really a factor for me. The frame rate unlock, the game feels fantastically smooth at 144 FPS, so again, I don't have a problem as long as the game feels and looks amazing. It doesn't matter to me what the numbers say. Anyway, moving on. All the stuff that made Titanfall 1 great is still there. The fast movement, the chaining wall runs, the epic Titan battles, it's all there, and now there's more content. That's basically the best way I can describe it. There are far more weapons, twice as many Titans, tons of variety and customization options. The time to kill in pilot versus pilot gameplay is a fair bit faster than the first game, but it's not so fast as to be unsatisfying, and outplaying people either by superior movement or superior aim feels just as rewarding as it did in the original game. The game feels great, and for me, the gameplay is just so inherently fun and free-flowing that it's really addictive. If you never played the first game, it might feel a little odd at first, but once you get the hang of it, moving around normally just doesn't feel right anymore. You know, flawlessly pulling off a series of parkour moves and wall runs to get around the map just has some sort of inherently satisfying quality that's hard to explain. I know I might ruffle a few feathers here, but for me, Titanfall has always awoken in me the sort of feelings that the Battlefield series has tried and failed to do. That sort of feeling that you're almost playing the role of a soldier in a huge movie set piece or something. It's a little bit hard to explain, but there's something about the game that I honestly find to be truly cinematic, and I mean that in a good way, not in a dumb 25 FPS sort of way. Anyway, maybe it's just me. Maybe I've always had a soft spot for games that let you zoom around quickly and bounce off walls, but even just taking a look at the movement system in Titanfall as one example, it really does give me a sense of enjoyment in a way that, say, Black Ops 3's gimmicky wall run system could never even hope to do. Now, speaking of badly balanced games, it would be remiss of me not to mention that Titanfall 2 multiplayer does have its own balance issues. At the moment, I feel the SMGs are a bit too dominant in pilot versus pilot combat, although the balance in pilot versus pilot is otherwise pretty good, I think. Especially given the size of the maps and the rather large number of weapon types, I'd say it's pretty close to well balanced, just that the SMGs are a little too dominant. Titan balance is a little bit worse. At time of writing, both Tone and Legion are pretty overpowered and vastly outclass the other Titans, particularly in Titan versus Titan combat. Respawn has actually already nerfed both of them, but they are still both overpowered, particularly Tone, who just dominates in all situations. Some more tweaks are definitely needed. Hopefully they'll come along soon, and I would say that given Respawn has announced several times that they're going to be making all the DLC for Titanfall 2 free, I think it's fair to assume that they'll keep an eye on the balance situation as well. Finally, a lot of people seem to be concerned with the player base, especially on PC, and all I can say to that is, I have no trouble finding games, and I live in one of the most sparsely populated regions of the civilized world. Reports of Titanfall 1's demise were greatly exaggerated. A lot of people still to this day insist that that game died after 2 weeks or a month or 2 months or whatever. Like I said, I live in a region that's super underpopulated, and I could still get games in Titanfall 1 more than a year and a half after its release. So basically, if you're worried about the player base, don't be. You're worried about nothing. So, in conclusion, Titanfall 2. Excellent, if slightly too short single player. Excellent multiplayer, amazing graphics with superb visual and audio design, free DLC on the way, what's not to like? 9.5 out of 10, can't recommend enough, just the right amount of water. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you enjoyed the destruction. Peace out, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day, and if you are one of those people going to go pick up Titanfall 2, I hope you enjoy it and have a fantastic time. But, that's it, I'm out of here, later guys. However much ammo you have, it's never enough. Holy fuck, get away from me, Reaper. Oh, the teams are too heavy. Scream, they're too heavy. Wow, sick, like, preemptive eject, dude. What the fuck was that? Jesus, how many points does it need? 260 when we finally win. Teammates, please. You make me very sad every day. Yeah, the executions are pretty fun in this game. Ah, should have been able to kill him. Got him anyway. Welcome back, Reaver. How many people left? 2. It's too much. Fucking the back of man was not designed to carry teams like this.